The screen in front of me went white, then black, then nothing at all. 1 second I was watching the embassy feed, listening to Ambassador Marcus Doyle finish his opening remarks to the Chrysal delegation. The next second the feed was gone. Not glitching, not lagging, gone like it had never existed. I sat frozen in my chair on the bridge of the escort ship Halcyon, my headset still pressed to my ear, waiting for static, for a distress call, for anything. Nothing came. "Comms report," said Captain Alina Brooks, her voice tight. "I don't have anything, Captain," I said. My hands were shaking on the console. The embassy signal just cut, all of it, at once. We were 4 light minutes away, close enough to see the flash before the sound of it ever reached us, if there had been sound to carry. Through the forward viewport, a new light bloomed where the embassy station used to be, sharp and silent and terrible. Nobody on the bridge spoke. I counted the seconds because counting was the only thing my mind could hold on to. 300 people had been on that station. Diplomats, engineers, a woman named Priya who used to send me recipes because she said my ship food looked sad. All of them were part of that light now. "Confirmed status of the Chrysal cruiser," Captain Brooks said. "Still in position," said our tactical officer, a quiet man named Callum Ward. "It has not moved since firing." They had not moved. They were not running. They were not even bothering to hide what they had done. I waited for the order. Every part of me expected shouting, expected the captain to call for weapons, for a distress signal to Earth Command, for something loud and immediate. Instead, Captain Brooks stood very still, staring at the wreckage on the screen, and said nothing at all. The silence stretched on for almost a full minute. It was the kind of silence that feels heavier than noise, the kind that presses on your chest until you forget how to breathe normally. Then Callum's console chimed. He looked down at it and his face changed. "Captain," he said slowly, "our navigation system just locked. It's not responding to manual input." "What do you mean it's not responding?" "I mean it's plotting a course, on its own." I turned to my own console and saw the same thing happening on our comms display, a strange status line that had never appeared before in any manual I had ever read. It said one word, over and over, refreshing every few seconds. "Vigil." "What is that?" I asked, though I already had the sick feeling that no one on the ship, maybe no one alive, actually knew the answer. Captain Brooks walked to the main console and looked at the numbers scrolling past. Her jaw tightened. "I've heard of this," she said quietly. "I didn't think it was real." "Heard of what, Captain?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to the ship-wide comm and opened a channel to the whole crew. "This is the captain speaking. I need everyone to remain calm. Our systems have engaged something called the Vigil Protocol. I do not have full details, but I need every one of you to trust that this ship, and every human ship in known space, is about to do something we did not choose in this moment, but something we agreed to a long time ago." I stared at her. "Captain, what does that mean?" She looked at me, and for the first time since I had served under her, I saw something in her eyes that was not quite fear and not quite relief. It was closer to grief that had been waiting a long time to be useful. "It means the promise just activated," she said, "the one we made after the Ember War." I had read about the Ember War in school, the way everyone does, as a distant tragedy with a neat ending. Humanity had nearly been wiped out by an alien fleet 140 years ago. We survived by a margin so thin that historians still argue about how close it really was. After that war, the story goes that every surviving government on Earth agreed on one single rule, encoded into the deepest layer of every ship built afterward. A rule that no president, no admiral, and no committee could override. If proof was ever confirmed that an unarmed diplomatic party had been struck first, without warning, without provocation, every human vessel anywhere in the galaxy would move. Not because a leader ordered it, because humanity itself had already decided, generations ago, that some lines would never be crossed again without an answer. I always thought it was a myth, a story meant to make children feel safe at night. Staring at my screen, watching every navigational system on the Halcyon reroute itself without a single human hand touching the controls, I understood it was not a myth at all. "Captain," Callum said, his voice barely steady, "long-range sensors are picking up movement. Everywhere." He put it on the main screen, and I felt my stomach drop. Ships were turning. Cargo haulers near Jupiter's old shipping lanes. Research vessels near the outer colonies. Passenger transports that had nothing to do with any military at all. Even a small survey ship that I knew was 3 years out on a mapping mission near the edge of charted space. A ship with no weapons and barely a crew of 6, turned its nose toward Chrysal territory at the exact same moment as every other vessel in the fleet. There was no order given. There was no time delay from distant signals catching up to each other. It happened all at once, faster than light itself should have allowed information to travel. "How is this possible?" I whispered. "It isn't communication," Captain Brooks said, watching the screen with something like awe. "It's a shared decision, built into every ship the day it was made. We just never needed to see it before." The Chrysal cruiser that had destroyed the embassy still had not moved. I imagined, for a moment, what their sensors must be reporting to them right then. Human ships everywhere turning in perfect unison with no warning and no explanation, as if the entire species had exhaled the same breath at the same time. They must have thought we were slow. They must have believed that a species who negotiated so patiently, who sent unarmed diplomats instead of warships, who spoke softly and smiled through translation delays, was a species without teeth. I had thought the same thing myself, honestly, in quieter moments. I had wondered if humanity had grown too gentle, too careful, too eager to be liked. I understood now how wrong that idea had been. "Position report," Captain Brooks said. "We're moving with the rest of the fleet," Callum answered. "Course is locked toward Chrysal home space. Estimated arrival with the main convergence in 6 hours. Weapon status." Callum went quiet for a moment, checking something twice before he answered. "Captain, we have systems coming online that were never in any of my training manuals. Defense grids I didn't know this ship carried. It's like the Halcyon has been hiding half of itself the whole time." I thought about that word, hiding. Not hiding out of shame, but hiding the way a hand hides a promise until the moment it's needed. Over the next hours, more information came in from the ships around us, patched together from open channels that nobody had ordered opened. Information sharing itself the same way the course change had, instantly and without permission. Every single human vessel in known space, from the smallest shuttle to the largest cargo freighter, was converging. Civilian ships had been outfitted with hidden defensive systems decades ago. Quietly, without announcement, systems built into their bones the same way the Vigil protocol was built into their navigation. Nobody had told the passengers. Nobody had told most of the crews. We built ourselves a promise so deep that even we forgot we were carrying it until it woke up. I thought about Priya and her recipes, about Ambassador Doyle and his careful, patient voice during every negotiation I had ever listened to. I thought about how gentle humanity had tried to be, offering trade routes and shared research instead of threats, hoping that patience would be answered with patience. It had not been. But somewhere in the quiet corners of every shipyard, in every design meeting held after the Ember War, humanity had also decided that gentleness was not the same as weakness, and that a promise to answer cruelty with resolve did not need to be loud to be real. It only needed to be true. As the Halcyon moved through open space alongside thousands of other human vessels, none of us speaking, all of us simply arriving, I understood something I had never fully believed until that moment. Humanity had not built the Vigil protocol because we expected to win every fight through force. We built it because we needed the galaxy to understand that our patience had a foundation, and beneath that foundation was something absolute. The Chrysal cruiser was still sitting exactly where it had fired from when our fleet arrived within visual range. I do not know what its crew felt in that moment, seeing what we had become without a single shouted order, without a single broadcasted threat. I only know that Captain Brooks stood at the front of the bridge, steady and quiet, and said the words that I think summed up everything humanity had just proven. "We didn't need to decide anything today," she said. "We decided this a long time ago. All we did was remember." I looked out at the endless line of human ships stretching further than I could see, ordinary vessels that had spent their whole lives carrying cargo and scientists and families, now standing together for the first time in 140 years, unified by a promise none of us had spoken aloud, but all of us had somehow always known. The Chrysal thought our silence after the embassy meant surrender. They did not understand that our silence had never meant surrender. It meant we had already decided, long before that day, exactly how we would answer.